Aristotle's influence on science. Aristotle was born in 384 BCE in Stagaria, a city in the Greek province of Macedonia. His father was the physician to Amyntas II, the king of Macedonia. And so Aristotle's early childhood was spent in an environment of court life. At the age of 17, he was sent to Athens to complete his education. He spent 20 years there, first as a student and then as a colleague of Plato. When Plato died, Aristotle left Athens and later returned to Macedonia to become the private tutor of Alexander the Great. In 325 BCE, Aristotle came back to Athens and founded the Lyceum, a school and center of research. Little is known of his physical appearance and little biographical information has survived. Fortunately, 50 volumes of his writings did survive. These works of Aristotle remained unknown in Western Europe for 1600 years after the decline of the ancient Greek civilization until they were rediscovered in the 13th century CE and incorporated into Christian theology. Aristotle became such a dominant influence in the late Middle Ages that he was referred to simply as the philosopher. The works of Aristotle constitute an encyclopedia of ancient Greek thought, some of it summarized from the work of others, but much of it created by Aristotle himself. Today, it seems incredible that one man could have written so intelligently and knowledgeably on such different subjects as logic, philosophy, theology, physics, astronomy, biology, psychology, politics, and literature. Some scholars doubt it was all the work of one man. Unfortunately, Aristotle's physical theories had limitations which became evident much later. However, this should not detract from his great achievements in other fields. For example, according to him, the fall of a heavy object towards the center of the earth is a natural motion. What factors determine the rate of fall? A rock falls faster than a leaf. Therefore, he reasoned weight must be factor. An object falls faster in air than in water. So, the resistance of the medium must also factor in. Other factors such as the color and temperature of the object could conceivably affect the rate of fall. But to Aristotle, these were evidently of little importance. He assumed that the rate of fall must therefore increase in proportion to the resisting force of the medium. The actual rate of fall in any particular case would be determined by dividing the weight by the resistance. In this book, On the Heavens, Aristotle makes the following claim regarding natural motion. A given weight moves a given distance in a given time. A weight which is heavier moves the same distance in less time, the time being inversely proportional to the weight. For instance, if one weight is twice the other, it will take half as long. Aristotle also discussed violent motion, that is, motion of an object which is not toward its natural place. Such motion, he argued, must always be caused by a force, and the speed of the motion will increase as the force increases. When the force is removed, the motion must stop. This theory agrees with our common experience in pushing desks or tables across the floor. It doesn't seem to work quite so well for objects thrown through the air, since they keep moving for a while even after we have stopped exerting a force on them. To account for this kind of motion, Aristotle assumed that the air itself somehow exerts a force that continues to propel an object moving through it. Later, scientists proposed some modifications in Aristotle's theory of motion. For example, John Philoponus of Alexandria in the 5th century AD argued that the speed of an object in natural motion should be found by subtracting the resistance of the medium from the weight of the object rather than dividing by the resistance. Philoponus claimed that he had actually done experiments to support his theory. Though he did not report all the details, he simply said that he dropped two weights, one of which was twice as heavy as the other, and observed that the heavy one did not reach the ground in half the time taken by the light one. There were still other difficulties with Aristotle's theory of motion. However, the realization that his teaching concerning motion had their limitations did little to modify the important position given to them in the universities of France and Italy during the 15th and 16th centuries. In any case, the study of motion through space was of major interest to only a few scholars, and indeed it had been only a very small part of Aristotle's own work. Nevertheless, Aristotle's theory of motion fitted much of human experience in a journal, if qualitative, way. Two further influences stood in the way of radical changes in the theory of motion. First, Aristotle had believed that mathematics was of little value in describing change. Second, he had put great emphasis upon qualitative observation as the basis of all theorizing. Simple qualitative observation was very unsuccessful in Aristotle's biological studies. But progress in physics began only when careful measurements were made under controlled conditions. It would not be at all rash to suggest that when, over 19 centuries after Aristotle, Galileo turned his eyes away from all the complicated motions of things in the outside world and fixed them on the curiously artificial motion of a polished brass ball rolling down an inclined plane. His eyes made one of the most important turns in history. And when he succeeded in describing the motion of that ball, mathematically he not only paved the way for other men to describe and explain the motions of everything from planets to pebbles, but did in fact begin the intellectual revolution to what we call modern science.